We are up to Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Just a quick synopsis of what we did yesterday. The Mishnah said that everybody is able to write the get, including people that generally
a
chedish, a sheit, and a cotton. All three of them can write a get. Then the second part of the Mishnah said that a woman can write the get, then transfer it to her husband, and he gives it back to her. And the Mishnah concludes because the key of the get is only the signatures. So how do we understand the Mishnah? So one way of understanding the Mishnah is, why would a cotton, for example, be kosher or a shayta? So one way of understanding the Mishnah is that the Mishnah follows the view of Rabbi Elazar, and who holds that the writing of the get is the mitzvah of kosel mitzvah to write the get, and the Eid and Masira are the ones who make the get, activate the get. But it's talking about that there was an older person supervising these people there. Godel Eimel Gabel. And that's why it works. And why doesn't it work then with a guy writing as well as a supervisor? Because the guy has his own thoughts in mind. There is an argument in Rashi and takes what exactly means his own thoughts in mind. According to Rashi, he thinks whatever he changes, he alters whatever the husband told him to think. He thinks, I know better. Taisha says not that he necessarily has different thoughts, he just has no thoughts. He doesn't think about the lishma. And by a woman, we don't say when you write against some lishma, because a woman generally is not meant to be divorced. So therefore, if it happens, you actually have to actively think about lishma for her, and the guy doesn't do that. That was one way of learning. And then he changed his mind, and he says quite possible that our Mishnah is Rab Meir. Rab Meir holds that the most important part is the chasimah. When the Mishnah concludes, she'ein kiyum haget el b'chaismav, means the Eidim signing. So the first part of the get doesn't matter, and that's why it is kosher. Which would mean that even a guy would be kosher. And all those places that says that a guy is not kosher they follow Rabbi Elazar that says Eidim Masira writing is important, and a guy writes himself. So we're talking about 12 lines on top of the page. Amrav Nachman. This idea of a Godel Eimel Gabel, some people say that the pshat is that this Godel Eimel Gabel is actually like the sender is like he's the one who's doing it, because since he's supervising, it's not just an outsider watching, but he becomes involved because he's doing it himself, in a form of shlichus. Says the Gemara, Rav Nachman said, Meir would say where he had this previously in the Gemara, according to Rav Meir holds that the only thing that matters is the Eidei Chasima. According to Rav Meir, it says that what matters is the Eidei Chasima. Then, Afilu Matzai Ba'ashma, even if you found a get lying on the ground, but it has the same names of yourself and your wife, Chasama, and you make sure you signed it correctly, then the son I gave it to her, kosher is kosher. To that extent. Well, not only Rav Meir holds that the chesiva is the main thing, but he's saying lechatchila. Even lechatchila, you can go ahead. The chesiva doesn't matter. The writing doesn't matter. What matters is the signing should be done correctly. So if you find the get, you can use it. Question: how can you say that? It says, and we know that a stam mishnah generally is Rav Meir. It's an anonymous mishnah is Rav Meir. So I'm assuming all of these following mishnah Rav Meir. It says that because of law lishma, that you have to write it in her name. My love, writing shivas get. Even a mayor would agree that you have to write the get correctly. So when it says kosav in the Mishnah, it means the signing of the edim. Yes, you're right. The Mishnah is Rameir, but it means signing, even though we use the word kosav. Another question says kol get shenitr any get that was not written for this woman. Puzzle is puzzle. For a particular woman is puzzle. Again, see, writing is critical. And Rameir. But if the Mishnah is Rameir, then even though you use the word writing, he means writing of the Eidim, not the writing of the Sefer, but the writing of the witnesses. That's what he means. So that's important. But the writing of the get is not. Another question says, when he writes it, is Ki'ilu Koiser Lishma. That when he writes it, if he writes part of the get, Lishma, as if the entire get was written Lishma. So what does he mean again? The writing of the get itself has to be Lishma, and anonymous mishnahs are Aramaic. My life is Lishma. If you write, now remember, we learned before, there's two parts of the get. There's the Taifus, the standard template, and the Taita, which means the revealed part of the get, reveals to us who is meant to who is intended for. So what do you mean if you wrote part of the get Lishma, the rest of the get is as if it's written Lishma? Then when he writes the Taita Lishma, Ki'ilu Kaisu the Taita, as if he wrote the Taita Lishma. Again, we see that according to Rav Meir, the written part of the get has to be correctly. So Nachman is saying here that according to Rav Meir, the only part of the get that has to be done Lishma is the signing, the writing of the Eidim, and the rest of the get doesn't matter. So, and therefore he said our Mishnah, he changed his mind, is actually Rav Meir, and that's why Cheresh Shveit Cotton can write a get, because we don't really care. So then now he says halacha. independent of Mishnah. According to Rameir, if you found a get lying on the ground with the name match up, the Chatzchila you can use it. No, the writing doesn't matter. So we're bringing a whole array of Mishnahs where it says clearly the writing is important. And of Stam Mishnahs Rameir. And each one of them, when it says writing, we're saying in writing of the Eidim, not the writing of the Sefer. So now the last thing it says, if you wrote part of the get to Lishma the Teidiv, that's the revealed part where the names are. It's as if you wrote the entire get Lishma. So again, we see writing is important. So we're saying no. I can still fit it in according to Rameir and say that when the writing of the witnesses of Lishma is as if the rest of the get is also written Lishma. In fact, I try to interpret all the Mishnah according to Rameir. I'll tell you what, make it easier. The author of all of these Mishnahs where we say that writing is important, it doesn't mean just writing of the witnesses, because you're right. Usually when we talk about witnesses, we don't use the word writing, we use the word signing. So I'll say that writing means the writing of the get. But it follows Rabbi Elazar, who says that the Eidim is Sirakarsi, that it's not the witnesses who sign, you don't even need that. It's only Tikkun Olam. It's the witnesses who witness the transfer. And when the Torah says the Kos of law, it means the writing of the actual get, and that's who these Mishnahs are. Now let me see the Karsi. Okay, saying about it further, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, and it follows Rabbi Shmuel, who Sheshayeh Mokam HaTorah. That what this that our Mishnah says. I'll give you a third interpretation on Mishnah. This that our Mishnah. So we had first is Rabbi Elazar and Godel Eimel Gabel. You have to write properly because it's not writing. Then we said it's Rameir and we don't care about the writing. Now we said I'll go back and Rabbi Shmuel says it is Rabbi Elazar. So how can you invite the Cheresh to write? We're talking about over here, but who Sheshayim Mokam HaTorah, that the Cheresh only wrote the standard template. They did not write the revealed part of the get. And therefore, and we don't need a Godel Emagabim. That's why this gets the kosher, because they did not write the parts that are vital, which is the names of the place. When we say can write, we're talking about the template, the standard template, not the Mokam HaTorah. And Rabbi Elazar follows Rabbi Elazar, comes along Rabbi Zika and says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Ein a Torah. He says, I don't like your pshat at all. What do you mean, Ein a Torah? What do you mean I don't like your pshat? How did he understand the Mishnah? The Mishnah is trying to tell you here, no, the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. You're telling me the Mishnah Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yechanan, no, Ein a Torah. Interesting way. That's not pshat in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. And Kan Hariacha she'en koyach l'shma. He is trying to tell how the Eidim are the only thing that matter. And the Mishnah concludes she'en kiyum haget ela b'chaysim, because it's Rameir. The only part of the get that matters are the witnesses, and the l'shma part of the writing is not important at all. But Rameir don't make chibkarsi. Says the Gemara, how can it be? But Rabba bar Achana, didn't Rabba bar Achana say in the very name of Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Elazar? He said before, when we talked about you shouldn't write a get, mechuber, he said that the Mishnah is Rabbi Elazar said that the writing is the most important part. Amaroi, so it's not the author of these Mishnahs is not prepared. Amaroi he liber Rabbi Yechanan. Two opinions how we understand Rabbi Yechanan. Next Mishnah. So now we wrote about who can write a get. Now we're going to talk about who can deliver the get. Hakok shading lahavis a get. Everybody is kosher to deliver a get, chutz except chedesh shot of a cotton. In this case, no, even though a chedesh shot of a cotton can write a get, but they cannot deliver a get, because obviously they're not trying to hold a Gittin and they're not shlichas ninu, and most say as we say la b'nei denu you had before and soon. The summa, nor can a blind person be the one to deliver the get. We'll soon see why not. What's his disqualification? And the no can a goy. And we're going to make a big deal out of the fact that in the previous Mishnah, when it says though it could write a get, it doesn't mention that a goy could. That's why we say a goy taka cannot write a get. And we had to have the reason because he died to the nafsh colors. Because here, when it comes to delivering, we highlight the fact that a goy cannot deliver the get. So does that mean a goy could write it? We can make that inference, or do we say because the Mishnah doesn't include it in the list of people that can write, a goy is not included? So we'll see. Kibel hakot. What happens when they receive the get? The person was a child, but by the time he got to the woman, he became bar mitzvah. Or chedesh, at the time when he received the get from the husband, he was deaf and dumb. But when his pakech, he became healthy, open up. Summa blind, his patech, and he was able to see. In other words, the part of the shlichus when he received this, when he was in the shlichus initiated, he wasn't suitable. But when it came to affect the shlichus, he was. Shaitim nishtafa. Shaitim became well. Eva gechavim in his guy, a guy became converted. All of the case of apostle. because you need the shlichus from the beginning to the end to be suitable. But what about the following case? The beginning was suitable, the end was suitable, but in the interim, he became unsuitable. What happens then? He received that he was a pekeach. Then he's traveling, suddenly something happened, he became very ill, and he became nischadish, and then by the time he got to the woman, he became well again. Or pasubach can see, blind see. Well, unwell, and well again mentally. All these cases are kosher. This is the rule. Kosher kosher. It's started out and finished off. In other words, there's two parts in the shlichus: when you were appointed as a shlich and when you carried out the actual shlichus. The interim part is just sort of doesn't have to be. So therefore, the shlichus didn't matter about the middle part. The shlichus only matters the two ends, and as long as you're well know the ends, that's all that matters. Says he, you understand why Cheshire got not qualified, because they're not B'nai Daininu. Now, what, they're not intelligent, and so therefore, first of all, they're not shaykh to the mitzvah. And second of all, cannot be a shliach, because when the Gemara Kedusha will learn, it says ish, be an adult, and not in these cases here. Well, we understand why he's not entitled to be a shliach. The whole, you can only be a shliach of things that can pertain to you. Since a goy doesn't have marriage, doesn't have a get, so therefore, how can he be the deliverer of the get? Why can't a blind person? It's the wrong person. Very good. Now, blind person, according to us, is chayiv mitzvahs, even according to the pater mitzvahs. Maybe is a very good point. We'll see in a minute. Blind person is chayav at least mitzvah midrabanan, according to most opinions. So therefore, why can't a blind person be the one who's shaykh to it? He has no idea who actually gave him the get, and he has no idea who he's giving the get to. Mask Rabbi Yosef, if you can say that one, but a blind person has no idea. Hey, how can a blind person live with his own wife? Hey, forget back at night when it's dark. How can anybody live with their wife? Obviously, they recognize the voice. Which I don't understand, because your wife you live with, of course you recognize the voice. And husbands, people live with their wives. This guy was sent by a man, didn't know him, and is going to a woman who lives somewhere far away. Who says he even knows her? Is there a stipulation here that he has to know her before he goes? There's no such stipulation. So how does he know that this is the right woman? And how does he know that this is the husband? How do you compare a stranger to your wife and then make a big question of it? I don't know. What shot?
Do you need Eddie Mysterio at the time as well? Besides
of course you do. You could have blessed. He'll help him. He could have answered on that end. He could have just answered Eddie Mysterio. I'll tell them that this is the right woman. But on the other end, you don't need Aiden. That when he picks it up from the husband, and there's no stipulation that says that he can only be a shliach or sunnah. No, but we're explaining here why we would have thought that a sunnah. And what do you call it? We're disqualifying a sunnah. We're explaining why would you have thought, why taka is the reason why a sunnah can't be is because he doesn't know where you got it from. Yeah, so we're saying here. So we're asking a question: why taka can a sunnah be a shliach? Let's be a shliach. So we're saying we recognize the voices. So maybe Rabbi Yosef was asking this question, saying, where the sunnah recognize the voice, let him be a shliach. Maybe he's not saying in every case let the sunnah be, but at least if you recognize the voices, let him be a shliach. And the Mishnah says he's disqualified in all instances. Rabbi Yosef, you know why he's disqualified here? Because we're talking about a case not that within Eretz Yisrael, from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, and Chutz La'aretz, where he has to say b'fanei nechtav. And that's his handicap. He cannot utter those words. And that's vital, because that's the takana, to protect the woman, that her husband shouldn't come tomorrow and allege that this get is fraudulent. We're talking here about chutz la'aretz. The boy remember for nechtav. It has to be nechtav when he can't say. That's the problem. Abaye said, if that's the case, so what about if at the time he received the get, he was able to see and then became blind by the time he got to the woman? He recognizes the voice, in the case we recognize the voice, and he doesn't have to say, and he could still say before the next of somebody, he's blind right now, but he saw it when it was written. So why does Mishnah disqualify him from being a shliach? And who said it is? Maybe Taki is. Maybe Taki, if he was able to see when he received the get. No, because the Mishnah says the only time that he is kosher is if he was able to see, became blind, and was able to see again at the other end. Why do you have to see again at the other end? Well, tell you, when he's talking about chazan is patay kosher, is mashma chazan and is patay only if he's able to see again at the very end in. Oh, like chazan is patay like not. Like no. Who are doing the same? You can apply. I did makes no difference by a blind person. But I did turn a shot from the start. That since when it comes to the other things like the mental issues, there definitely has to be meant. Has to be well in both ends. When time of the chazan and the staff, he must say it's well on both ends when he gives it as well. Is halal chazan staff loy? So the for both same here also. When it comes to a blind person, we say he just poetically or stylistically it makes sense, but that's not really what he means. It doesn't really matter. By blind, if he's able to see again. I'm going to Nick now prove it to you. The Mishnah concludes that this is the rules. They're called kosher chilosiv v'seifer b'das kosher. Because starts out and ends. But das he's kosher. Like Tony kosher chilosiv v'seifer b'kash's kosher. It says das. As long as the beginning, then you're well. Doesn't say anybody who starts out kosher ends kosher. So now when it comes to kosher, let's say a blind person, as long as he starts out kosher, it's good enough. It's the other ones that have to be beginning and the end. Okay, we discussed all of these cases. What about Eved? And Eved Knani, on the one hand, has mitzvahs like a woman. On the other hand, he doesn't really have. He lives with a shivcha. There's no get involved. Mahu. She yas a shlich like can he become a shlich to be mekabel the get of the isha? Now notice that Rabbi Ami is asking about a shlich like kabbalah, which means that the woman appoints the Eved to receive the get. And Rashi learns that even though we're talking about shlich kabbalah, it makes no difference regarding this discussion in the Gemara whether he's a shlich acting on behalf of her. And as soon as he receives the get, she's free, or he's a shliach acting on behalf of him. The question is whether the concept, the notion of shliach, is applicable to an Eved. That's how Rashi learns. Okay.
Change if it's her Eved. If she owns the Eved.
There's no shaila. What's the problem? No. But the question is whether Eved can be a shliach machal.
Is a mitzvah. If the Eved is her Eved.
The same question.
But is there shlichus because it's yada?
Yeah, so that's it. As soon as he gave it to her, she's divorced. The question is, can the Eved be the one receiving the get? Is he shaykh to the union of Gittin at all or not? He still has to be shaykh to it. Because this Eved has to give it to her in her hand. We had
if she owns the Eved.
Yeah, and then therefore the chatzah malechas. Oh, good. Tell you what further. Amalu made a kapasle. If I'm seeing the Mishnah qualifies a goy, the cloud Eved kosher. There must be a goy. Has no mitzvahs at all, but Eved is kosher. And Rashi knows, so therefore there could be a shliach l'halacha. Shliach kabbalah makes no difference. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Yechanan, Eina Eved not so shliach I will get liisha meyabayla. No, you say never can be. He said Rabbi Yechanan, Eved cannot be a shliach to mekabel the get. And why not? Fisher ain't because Gittin kedushin. It's not shaykh at all to Gittin in the kedushin. So why? So Teacher wants to know why the Mishnah doesn't say an Eved cannot be a shliach, because we'll know if an Eved who shaykh to mitzvahs cannot be a shliach, then surely a goy cannot be included. Anyway, so Gemara continues further, and Teacher said there's a chiddush by goy that even though he became a ger after he received the get, and he was thinking about becoming a ger, so in a way he's in a better position than an Eved, because Eved has no control to become free, but he has control to become a ger whenever he wants to. And the chiddush is the one that they still not at the moment he's not valid. Masker Rablaza said, "Time, but the only reason is you tell me because the Eved is not shaykh to Gittin kedushin, and therefore he can be a shliach. Habinilson is a kosher, but something where, for example, truma. And these things which he's shaykh to, as long as you're shaykh to the thing, you can be a shliach. That's what you're saying. The problem is has no connection to this mitzvah. But if you would have a connection, he can be a shliach. So that's the question. But a goy who sometimes is shaykh to true meiser. When if they live in Israel, and if you follow the opinion by Rashi learns that a goy has no kinyan in the land of Israel, therefore anything that grows on his property is considered Israeli. It's chayv and true meiser. If he gets it, obtains it, he has to give true meisers. These are true of shayu. They have their truma. Now we learned how the chava kutsi shetarmu shalahem trumasel truma. Their own thing is truma. And Teisha wants to say that according to everybody, a goy has truma, even if you hold that a goy has a kinyan. So in the case where they grew a third by the Eid, and then the goy took over from there. So therefore, you already achieve a truma because it grew a third by the Eid. And yet we learned, so he's shaykh to the mitzvah goy, that if a goy, even if he did it with mission, ain't too much truma, even if it was a point to the shliach. No, you give the whole logic because you're not shaykh. As if you're shaykh, everything makes sense. Here we see the shaykh, a goy is shaykh to truma, and yet he can't be a shliach. My time, what's the reason? Because there's a pasuk. says by Truma Gam Atem, so we dash Gam Atem should be like you. Ma Atem Yisrael, just like you're Jewish. Af Shluchachim is somebody Jewish. So just like we discount the Eved Goy, even for Shaykh Eved also. So the word is not because the Eved is not Shaykh to the idea of get. The word is that the Goy, the Eved can't be a Shliach. It says has to be Bnei Brit, has to be Yidden. Has to be a Gamat Yisrael, has to be Yisrael. And the Eved is not yet a full-fledged Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Amri Rabbi Yanai, no. Ma'ata b'nei bris. People who have a bris mila, and the Eved does have a bris mila. A guy can't be a shliach ever, even those mitzvahs he's shaykh to, because he's not a yid. And it says Gamatim has to be like you, and therefore, even though the Gemara Kedushin brings a whole bunch of other makaris for Kedushin, when Daf Ayin Aleph in Bava Tzil, the Gemara said a guy can't be a shliach. The Gemara used the pasuk from Rashi says it because of Truma. Even though the Gemara itself in Kedushin we learn in the beginning of the second period that we learn from Kedushin and Gerish and not from Truma. But the word is all these other places you learn from, you cannot automatically negate to goy. It's only because that word gam atem should be like you. That automatically excludes a goy cannot be like you. But which respect like you? A bnei bris, a person with a bris. So goy, an Eved can be your shliach, but because he's not shaykh to this mitzvah, that's why he can't. By the way, the Rambam learns that the Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi are not even arguing. One of them is talking about shliach kabbalah, that's about me, and Rabbi Yechon is talking about shliach loch. A shliach kabbalah, you cannot be a shliach because your kabbalah is not just a shliach. He makes it happen. That means the moment the Eved receives the get, she's divorced. Then he has to have a shaykhus to the mitzvah. But if or maybe it's a different word altogether, doesn't work. But a shliach lahilach, all he is like a could be a Maisiko Balma, just behaving like a monkey. All he's doing is a delivery person. So by a shliach lahilacha, it may be an Eved can be. so maybe they're talking about different things. Maybe shliach lahilacha versus shliach kabbalah. So Rabbi Ami, maybe we're arguing, but Rabbi Ami is talking about shliach kabbalah, shliach lahilacha, and two different things. Further, Rabbi Yechon says the Eved cannot become a shliach because not shy to get to kedushin. So this is Rabbi Bar Abba to say Rabbi Yechon is talking about shliach kabbalah. Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yechon says, sorry, it's talking about shliach kabbalah, but the Rambam wants to make a distinction that even though we're talking about shliach kabbalah is not shy, but shliach lachi pass because they could be, according to some, is because a different role altogether. Because not shy to mitzvah kedushin, and when do we need to be shy? When you're makabel, because you're having a schus. We learn how to add shivcha. We learned, and this is the same thing, but he adds a line. Even though we learned that if a master says to the shivcha to his mate, you're remaining a shivcha, but v'lodcha ben chayil, I want to take this get on behalf of your child. If she was pregnant, she's on behalf of the uber. Now, what does that have to do with talking about if an Eved can be a shliach or not? What does that mean? What's going on here? So what does get sheikhah do with being pregnant? So the Gemara, he said two different things. Number one is needing the body. Seems to me, that an Eved, even though he cannot be a shliach from his own master, but he can be a shliach for someone else, for another Eved. If somebody else gave him another master, gave him a get, I want you to bring this to my Eved, he can do that. But if his own master had two avodim, and he says, "Look, I want you to take this get and bring it to the other get." Be shliach, he can't. Why can't he? Because it never left the hand of his original master. Because he's the Eved, Yad Eved Kid Yad Rabbi, whatever he has belongs to the original master. But the Spirit whispers in the air and says, "Do halacha shnuya." But we have halacha im hoysa ubra zachsalai. But we heard that the mistress can be zach on behalf of her embryo inside or little baby inside. So you could be an Eved and both have the same master, the mother and this baby. There are pictures of it. Two great people once explained. One adds to the other. If you, let's say, free half of an Eved, that Eved is kind of half. What do you mean free half of an Eved? We're talking about the baby inside you is considered half the mother, because the uber is considered the thigh of the mother, it's part of the mother. So therefore, she can accept for herself, but even for only part of herself for the uber. So in other words, to accept for another Eved altogether outside of herself from the same master, it never left the master. But she can accept for herself, right? A master can give an Eved and say, here, you're free, here's your get. So this is herself, only half of herself, the baby. But ask if you mark it to her one of her limbs. Mishnah. Even we learned in Gemara Yevamos that certain women come along and tell you that they tell a woman that her husband died, even though we learned that Eidechel is believed the woman is celebrating her husband died. Because if she gets caught out and she remarries the children, she has to leave Tatum as. But that 5 women that they come along and say, we saw your husband die, we don't trust them. They're trying to ruin your life. But when it comes to Gittin, they can bring you get. Says the Mishnah, even those women are not believed to say, your husband is dead, because maybe they're trying to harm you. They're manas, they are believed. Lahavi is Gittin. They're believed to be the ones who bring your get. Chamaisa, your mother-in-law. Ubas Chamaisa, the daughter of your mother-in-law, your husband's sister. The Tzarasa and your co-wife. The Yevemta and your husband's brother's wife. Ubas Baila and your stepdaughter, your husband's original daughter. Because they all feel that you're a rival. So ma ben get lemissa. Why taka do you believe when it comes to bringing the get, delivering the get? Here they're holding a piece of paper in their hand that proves that they're saying the truth. Haisha atri is gita, the one who self can bring her own get. We had something bring her mother. Which we'll soon see proves. We're talking about a case where you're coming from chutzlar to Israel. Doesn't matter. The chayda what time we learn kashem she'ein nemanos leimen mezbailas from husband. Sorry?
So why wasn't she just divorced there?
The husband decided, I don't want to be divorced in the city when you get back to your home. By the time you learn, clearly that they're not believed to bring the get. Like Kasha. In Israel, there's a different Israel chutzlaret, and it goes as follows. But is the lava, the dibur, the doctors, and so all the dudes living the get. We don't need to hear that testimony. They believe. But the chutzlaret is that the Buddha doesn't know. We need to say about neftem. Maybe they're lying. Just opposite. But in Israel, where they don't be all the dudes delivering the get, if the husband comes and alleges fraudulent, listen to him. We can say that so these women brought the get, they're trying to ruin her life because she'll think if she's divorced, we have to be married. Then the husband, Papa, hey, never happened. Then lay mehem, and not believe. But in chutzlaretz, if these women testify in front of Nechtav, then even the husband comes along, there's nothing he can do. So they're not harming her at all. They're benefiting her. Then of course they believe. Listen to the husband. Man, they believe. In fact, Tanya Kavash in the Bible, the Bryce is supporting about it. Isha and Menes Lahave Gita, a woman is believed to bring her own get a Kavachem. Of these women, they're not believed to say Maze Baila. Yet Neman, they believe Lahave Gita to bring a get. She. Should the Menes Mez Baila, she's believed to say my husband died. Surely should the Menes Lahave Gita. Surely, if she's believed that her husband died, surely she should be believed to bring her own get. And then they said, then we have to, since we learn Kavachem, the rule is you have to learn and equate it in all different respects. And just like that over there, those women have to say it says these women have to say which means they're coming from Chutz La'aretz, like Abaya learned. Because in that they wouldn't be believed. It's Dafka Chutz La'aretz they believe. In fact, the Mishnah supports Abaya. Isha brings her own get. She has to say clearly the end of the Mishnah says the Gemara. So Rabbi Yosef, Reisha, the very beginning, when it says everyone's kosher to bring a get, we said before, it's talking about in the previous Mishnah, we said it's talking about chutz la'ara. That's why a blind person can't do it because he cannot say v'nech. So it's a chutz. The Sefer of the Mishnah clearly concludes the woman says v'nech. That's the chutz. And mitziyasa, the middle case, Rabbi Yosef wants to say that one of these 5 women believe only in Eretz Yisrael. Does that make sense? Simon says yes. In Reisha, the Sefer b'chutz la'aretz, mitziyasa ba'aretz, mitziyasa is in Eretz Yisrael. Memai, why is Rabbi Yosef learn this way? When the Mishnah says, ma beget lemisa, what's the difference between the case of get and the case of death? Why by misa we don't believe these 5 women? By get we do. Shaksav mechia, because the get proves that they're saying the truth. Like Tani doesn't say shaksav upeh mechia, the fact that they're holding a get and they're saying the fun in nechtav, that's why they believe. In other words, Rabbi Yosef says, I believe, and stop talking about when they're saying for nechtav, it's fact in Eretz Yisrael. Not like a buyer. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mr. Shem.